One of the first things I wanted to point out is the different kind of propulsion systems that they used within the Empire or within the Star Wars universe. The Star Wars universe uses these different types of almost like warp gates or openings in another dimension they travel through. This does allow them to travel to distant star systems faster than warp speed, but it does have some limitations as well, as it takes a very long time to map these tunnels in this alternate dimension, and so it would give them an advantage, as they would be able to pop in and out of the system without basically the Federation knowing it, as long as they had the records of these tunnels within these other dimension. But unfortunately, without them in the new Star Trek universe, they wouldn't have any idea where any of these tunnels are going to, and extending them can be very dangerous, not knowing where to go to. It could lead you into a sun or a black hole or a planet or something of that nature. The next thing I want to talk about is turbo lasers and all the several different variants of turbo lasers, being from small turbo lasers, which you would see on fighter craft, to larger turbo lasers, which you see on Star Destroyers and Imperial warships and such. There's also turbo lasers which are of massive size, and then there's smaller turbo lasers, or four-barreled turbo lasers and such, and some of them shoot like machine gun fire. And there's also turbo lasers that are huge. Some of the turbo lasers that they had made are actually so large that they're actually dead into ships, and they're able to destroy moons or small continents. And there's even the Death Star, which is a giant turbo laser capable of destroying entire planets. The next weapon I'd like to discuss is the ion cannons. Ion cannons come in huge planetary defense versions, small versions. They're used to bring down shields and to disrupt enemy systems or completely burn them out to make them helpless. Ion cannons will come in very variety of different weapon systems, and are huge to small to medium, much like the Bree weapon from Star Trek. In the Star Wars universe, there's a ship for everything. That's one of the advantages they have among the Star Trek universe, which is very standardized. For an example, they can have ships that can pull you out of gravity or out of warp. They have just ships that are just purely there for troop transport. There are ships that are there for just war. There are ships that are the size of cities. There are ships that are designed to do everything. In the Star Wars universe, there's always one ship that can do something. They're very flexible with the military. The next advantage that I think that they would have is that there are so many races in the Star Wars universe with their own empires and their own ships. There's almost an endless amount of ships. For an example, they talk about the Empire as having over 1 million starships. And of that 1 million starships, 20,000 of them were Star Destroyers. The sheer magnitude of the Star Wars Empire would be daunting for any empire or any race to encounter. In the Star Wars universe, there's over 1 million different planets with their own defense forces. This is another thing that I think would give an advantage to the Empire, is if the Empire did, for some reason, lose its ships, not only would you have to fight over 1 million Imperial warships, but then you would have to fight all the planetary defense forces from all the other different unique races and all their weird, strange devices. It's one of the things about the people of the Star Wars Empire, is they're all so unique and different with all their own unique and different weapons. You would never be fighting the same enemy. It would constantly be a different enemy, fighting different ways, with different tactics. It would be hard for anyone to try to fight somebody who you don't know anything about. Imagine yourself the Federation. Imagine you pushing back the Empire with your advanced technology, and imagine you entering into the world of Star Wars, and then coming across one system of fleets of ships, and then coming across another system of another kind of ships with more weapons and more races and more technology, and then imagine coming across another one and another and another and another and another. This is one of the things about the universe of Star Wars. It just would give it a huge advantage, in my opinion, over the Star Trek universe. The Star Trek universe just doesn't have that many races with that many ships. And for an example, the Borg took out several hundreds of ships, and it was daunting to the Federation to rebuild their ships. And the other thing is, with the machinery that they used in the Star Wars universe, droids, they're able to build armies that are massive, quickly and fast. So even if the Federation was able to just do massive amounts of damage, it would be almost like an endless wave of ships. I mean, think about the clones. I mean, even their military, they could just breed clones in the millions. I really think that sheer numbers, it would make it probably the most advantage that the Empire would ever have over Star Trek, even with Star Trek's immensely superior weapons. The next advantage I think they'd have would be super weapons. The Star Wars Empire is known for building giant lasers that are capable of destroying entire planets or entire systems at times. I think this would be a huge advantage for the Empire, because the Star Trek universe just doesn't have anything like that. It doesn't have any weapons of that magnitude of massive destruction. The next advantage over Star Trek should be obvious. It should be the size of some of the ships in Star Wars. I mean, some of the ships are the size of cities or small moons. I mean, the sheer size of ships in Star Wars is unbelievable. I mean, even ships like the Trade Federation warship was huge and massive. It dwarfed even the Romulan warbird. The only thing that you could possibly compare within the Star Trek universe was the Dominion Dreadnought, but even then there wasn't that many of them, and then huge monstrous ships in the Star Wars Empire is quite common. The next thing I want to talk about is ground forces. I really think that the Empire and the people of Star Wars, the clone troopers and such, just have so much of a huge advantage over Star Trek, over ground force. Star Trek has almost no ground forces whatsoever, with phaser banks, and that's it. And then in the Star Wars Empire, I mean, there's just a massive amount of weapons and tanks and planes and everything. Another thing is how fanatic the Empire's army is. They will do anything, and they're almost like brainwashed, crazed maniacs. The Empire soldiers are ruthless killing machines who don't have any morals or regrets. And that's one of the advantages in a war, I think, that they would have over the Federation and the Klingons, people who have honor and people who have devotion to human life. You completely have almost no lack of respect for life within the Empire. The Empire is a machine of death, and I think that that would be an advantage, just for the fact that they are such fanatic psychopaths. Another advantage the Empire would have is all the strange and unique races that are in the Star Wars Empire. So many weird powers and such. Mostly like the Jedi and the Sith would be quite hard to deal with, I think, with the Star Trek. And then you have really bizarre races which are like invulnerable and can't die and instantly regenerate themselves and are generally ridiculous. And then the last thing I'll have to say is that the Clone Wars, or the Empire, they're crazy. They are fanatically crazy. And the people in Star Wars are generally more crazy and are willing to do anything to win. I mean, you look at the Rebels, they're willing to take on anybody at any time. And it's just, in my opinion, the people in the Star Wars universe have no problem dying. They don't think anything of it. They'll sacrifice themselves for what they view as the right or wrong. They'll do whatever it takes to win. They don't have any morals. They'll do whatever. There is literally almost nothing that they won't do within the Star Wars universe. which is quite different in the Star Trek universe. It seems like the races are pretty much like solid with what they will and will not do, but there's this huge gray area within the Star Wars universe which you don't see really in the universe of Star Trek. The only exception to this, I would say, is the Jedi. I mean, just imagine yourself in the Star Wars universe. What kind of person would put themselves in a ship with almost no shields and go and fight Imperial Star Destroyers? I mean, you would have to be crazy or insane to be willing to do that. And the fact that it's just commonplace in the Star Wars universe just to go hop in a fighter and go fly into a middle of a fleet and don't even think anything about it, it's like suicide. And that's one of the big advantages that I think you're going to get with the Empire that you don't really see with the Star Trek Empire. Is, with the exceptions of the Dominion and the Klingon Empire, not very many races are willing to just fly at you knowing that their mission is absolutely suicide. I mean, not very many races are willing to do this in the Star Trek universe, but apparently that's just what you do in the Star Wars universe, and you don't even think twice about it. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of the Empire or the world of Star Wars. If there's anything that you think that I forgot or you think I'm wrong about, go ahead and leave a comment or give me some kind of suggestions. I'm really open to any kind of feed, and I'd appreciate it if you share this with anyone. And I'll leave you with some little bit of clips here for the end to enjoy, and thank you guys all for your time.
Split up! Looks like I'm her favorite. I'm kind of disappointed. Only the droids follow me. You want a race? Come on!